to the RunRX podcast, where we talk about all things running. As many runners know, it's 90% mental. So join Coach Valerie and Coach Caroline as we go through the mental side of running. Welcome back to the RunRX podcast. I'm your host, Coach Caroline, and I'm here with Coach Valerie. Valerie, we were talking recently about holding yourself up and being light when you run. And you've talked about it on the lives recently about kind of thinking up, being in an upward, not straight up, but up and then fall. And how when you do that, when you run, how it can affect like all of your movement. Like it doesn't just affect your running, right? That posture.
Well, right. And this is an interesting thing. So pose is not posture. And it's interesting, when I first learned about pose method, everyone would say, oh, it's a posture. Well, no, posture is posturing. Like you're trying to convey some kind of message, right? That's really what posturing is. And it's a different thing. So what we teach with pose, or what the pose method is there's an optimal pose. There's an optimal position for your body to be in to run. By the way, there's an optimal position, there's an optimal pose in every single movement: walking, sitting, standing, you name it, crawling, swimming, we can go on and on. So every movement has an optimal pose. So the running pose is optimal for running. And the idea is that in that pose, we're going to put the least amount of stress and impact on the body and take full advantage of using gravity to accelerate and muscle elasticity for us to travel. And that's how you save your joints. So the challenge for many people is when they first start to run, they have not checked in on their pose. One, because they don't know what is the running pose, but also I think all of us have grown up our whole lives listening to the word posture or like, you need to stand up straight. I hear stand up straight, stand up tall. So every one of us, our whole life, has been told sit up straight, right? We've all heard these words.
Yep.
In class, when you were in class growing up as a kid, I heard it all the time. Sit up. Quit slouching.
Yeah.
Okay. So as an adult, when you're standing, you have a standing pose. And how many people work on their standing pose? Very few, by the way. And then how many people work on their walking pose, their running pose? Now, here's what's really interesting. So I always tease about my old days teaching aerobics, because that's how I started my fitness life. So I used to teach step aerobics. And part of step aerobics is you're stepping up and down on a bench. And what I would notice is as people would get tired or they were trying to watch my feet, they would start to kind of bend over. And I could see it, because I was in front of the class. So I would say, hey guys, we're proud to be here. Everybody lift their chest and shoulders up. And that would be one of my cues. And you would automatically see that when people in fact do stand up and lift their shoulders up, there is a sense of like confidence that comes with that. When you open yourself up and in just standing and put yourself in a position or pose where your shoulders are over your hips, your ears are over your shoulders are over your hips, it's a power stance, if you will. We call it the ready stance. And you're ready to, one, hold your body weight correctly, but you're also ready to move. You can walk, you can run, you can do a lot of things. And it's amazing because getting someone into that pose, in the beginning, it's a awkwardness, again, because it's something new, right? But the reality is that it's also going to, like you said, it's going to help you in how you present yourself all the time. But there is a reality that we also are made aware of the limitations we have and what we need to work on in order to hold our pose even better. How's that?
Totally. It goes back to what I've said on the Tough Love Tuesdays. How we do one thing is how we do everything. And you don't realize how they interconnect. Okay, guys. So if you're working on your pose, then think about, how am I standing when I'm working? How am I walking? Am I looking out and up when I'm walking, or am I looking down at my feet when I'm walking, right?
Correct.
And it's going to affect so much of your life if you start really looking at how how I'm running. What she's talking about in her running will also affect how I'm sitting at my desk, how I'm standing, how I'm cooking, how I'm waiting in line, maybe even how I'm driving. These are all things that you need to just become more aware of, and it will all kind of work together. So I like this subject, and I wanted to bring it up because when you learn this idea of standing upright like that, it's not just something you work on when you run. You can work on it when you're working. You can work on it when you're cooking, when you're cleaning. Movement patterns can be reinforced without you even realizing it. And I really want people to understand that idea of be proud, like stand upright, can, if you do that all day, then when you got to run, it's more likely to be there.
Right. And the reality is most of us, it's very hard to do that all day.
Yeah.
There has to be a reminder. Well, no, it's true. I mean,
Right.
it's like
True.
we try to put ourselves in positions of comfort. And most
Yes.
people say when they get home from work, they want to lay on the couch or they want to relax, they want to unwind. Well, part of that is because your back is tired from holding your body weight up. I mean,
Right.
imagine the amount of work it is to hold your head up all day long. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
one of the things that like it's talked about, like if you have an office job, people are talking about set an alarm every 30 minutes to do something like stand up, walk around, or open your chest and shoulders. You know, if you're not moving around, your joints get stiff. So
Hmm.
part of the fun, I think, of working on your movement, it's just like you're saying, now that I'm aware that I need to work on being able to hold my body weight up, instead of thinking I need to do a bunch of crunches or ab exercises, instead think about I really should work on standing and holding my pose. Because
Right.
one, balance, right? You build stability, it builds balance, it builds strength in the hips. There's so much that happens with it. And it's this, I think sometimes it's the simplicity of the practice. And people go, maybe that's not enough. And I'm like, no, it's enough. And it's
Yeah.
amazing, guys, that when you really do start to, I do a lot of strength training and CrossFit, and we call it, there's a word they use, it's called midline stability. And what that
Hmm.
means is you can hold your body in line. And the midline, of course, is from your chest to your hip and holding that midline stable. And then there's your head on the top. You're balancing your head on this stable midline. But when you start to play with these words and play with the movement of that, you really can get some good work done, like Caroline said, throughout your day when you're standing, when you're at the grocery store pushing the cart. I mean, there's just
Well,
so many
it's so
places you
true.
can practice your
When I
pose.
just zip up, like you talk about zipping, right? Um, Zipping up my jacket, right? That zips up my pelvic tilt, right? Which
Right.
helps me hold myself up. And it engages my core. If you engage your core just a little bit every day, it's actually core work, guys.
Well, right. And but this is the challenge too, because this here's the thing. It's like a lot of people come into RunRX with they think they need to work body parts. And so
Right,
we hear
right.
things like, well, I have a really tight hip, or I have weak glutes, or I'm not strong enough. I need more core strength, things like that. I hear this all the time. And honestly, what it really says to me is that there's a lot of disconnect because honestly, guys, if there is and we work on this too, of course, if you're in the membership with us, we have a lot of strength training, a lot of self-care exercises to help with this. But the reality is when you start to work with your body as a unit, and that's how we talk about when we practice just the pose, not that every exercise is standing in pose, but when you start to feel how your body is really connected, instead of thinking, oh, I've got to do core work or I've got to work on my specific body part, it really does make such a difference in your overall core strength, if you will, to work on the full body movements.
Definitely. Okay, guys, if you liked this episode, I hope you'll give us a 5-star review, subscribe to the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel, check us out on Instagram and Facebook. And if you have any questions, email them to support@runrx.fit. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the RunRX podcast. If you'd like to know more, join us at www.runrx.fit. And if you have additional questions that you'd like answered on the podcast, email us at support@runrx.fit.